Cells can reconvene when new threats arise, allowing inquisitors to call upon trusted companions. This organic ebb and flow of cells facilitates the spread of ideas, theories, and acquaintances across the galaxy over years, decades, or even centuries. Philosophies that fall out of favor in one region may only be emerging in another. Understanding the impossibility of maintaining a structured organization across the vastness of the Imperium, the Inquisition's approach has been largely successful for 10,000 years. Cells exist for specific purposes to combat common threats identified by their members, and inquisitors are free to leave or invite new members as needed. This ad hoc organization allows for flexibility and responsiveness to the myriad threats facing the Imperium. In general, each inquisitor manages a network of agents dedicated to serving their specific needs and interests. In return, every inquisitor must fulfill certain duties to their ordo, conclave, or personal conscience. Experienced inquisitors, or those requiring specific services, often maintain retinues of henchmen deemed most valuable. These retinues consist of various individuals, from chirurgeon medics to lobotomized gun servitors wielding heavy weapons. The known types of inquisitor henchmen are listed below: acolytes, interrogator, explicator. Inquisitors can take on apprentices and impart their knowledge, preparing them to eventually become full inquisitors. Chirurgeons, torturer/excoriator/sister hospitaller. These members of the Adepta Sororitas Orders Hospitaller, or those trained in torture, interrogation and punishment, assist in prisoner interrogation and healing battle wounds. Familiars, cherubim/servo skull/cyber eagle. These unusual henchmen enhance the psychic abilities of psycho-inquisitors, providing them with greater initiative. Hierophant, castigator, ecclesiarchy, priest, exorcist. Passionate members of the ecclesiarchy who boost the faith of demon hunters, chanting exorcisms and prayers that can harm nearby demons. Mystics, astropath/warpseer/sanctioned psyker. Sanctioned psychers employed to detect the presence of demonic creatures. Penitent, bound psyker, penitent witch, pariah. Repentant heretic psychers serving as psychic lightning rods, absorbing psychic attacks to protect the Inquisitor and their retinue. Sage, autosavant/lex mechanic/calculus. Logi, individuals with exceptional mathematical skills able to calculate firing angles and trajectories, increasing the accuracy of an Inquisitor's ranged weapons. Warrior, Imperial Guard veteran/combat servitor/gun servitor/crusader/adeptus arbites arbitrator. These individuals, or mindless automatons, serve as bodyguards and combat support, engaging in direct physical combat against the forces of chaos. Untouchables. These psychic blanks possessing the anti-psycho pariah gene, counter detection from other psychers. Introduced by Inquisitor Gregor Eisenhorn, their underrated ability has proven invaluable. Prominent examples include Wystan Frocker of Gideon Ravenor's retinue and Jurgen from Commissar Kierfus Kane's retinue. Exceptional retainers may become permanent members of an Inquisitor's retinue as new acolytes, aiding in the quest to bring light to the galaxy's dark corners. This list is not exhaustive, as Inquisitors employ a wide variety of individuals with diverse personalities and roles. This diversity allows for inquisitorial retinues and the Inquisitors themselves to be distinct, with varied personalities, weapons, histories, and attitudes. The Inquisition lacks a formal hierarchy and does not operate with a system of ranks or command akin to the imperial military or the Adeptus Terra. Authority within the Inquisition is determined by two key factors: reputation and influence. Seniority does not inherently equate to authority, but the wisdom of an older and more experienced Inquisitor is often respected. Among the Inquisition, one position holds more power and authority than any other: the inquisitorial representative to the Senatorum Imperialis. This role, one of the High Lords of Terra, is filled by nomination from the Inquisitor Lords of sectors near Terra, and those who have served in this capacity are known as Inquisitor Lord Terran. It is not uncommon for multiple Inquisitor Lords Terran to share the role of inquisitorial representative simultaneously. Though their presence in the Senatorum Imperialis is valued, their seat often remains vacant, with their vote conveyed by missive due to the demanding nature of their inquisitorial duties. An inquisitorial representative may serve just once or for several standard years, depending on their needs or preferences. The requirements of Inquisition service might necessitate their departure from Terra to attend a high conclave, while others may quickly grow weary of the bureaucracy and politics inherent in the Senatorum and relinquish their position to return to more active roles in the galaxy. To prevent excessive politicking, the maximum term an Inquisitor Lord Terran can serve on the Senatorum is 5 standard years, after which they must step down. Disagreement on a candidate for the role among the Inquisitor Lords is rare, as the position is viewed more as a messenger role rather than one of personal power. The representative communicates the will of the Inquisition, not their own. However, the role comes with significant responsibility. While the Inquisition wields absolute authority, cooperation with the other High Lords is crucial for maintaining this power. For example, if a representative were to antagonize the Fabricator General of Mars, it could jeopardize the starships and arms essential for the Inquisition's operations. Conversely, if the Inquisition perceives an organization as lacking dedication, pressure can be applied to the relevant High Lord, making it a matter of personal confidence. In this regard, the representative holds a unique position of leverage, as they have not attained this role through personal ambition. Thus, they risk nothing personally in their dealings with the other High Lords. The High Lords, aware of the subordinates who covet their position, must constantly safeguard their power. Even a hint of the Inquisition's displeasure can lead to a High Lord's removal by their own peers. Non-permanent High Lords, such as the leader of the Chartist Captains or the Lord Solar, are particularly vulnerable to this kind of careful manipulation by the representative, risking both their personal status and the privilege of their organization. Thus, the delicate balance of power between the Inquisition and the rest of the Imperium is maintained. In addition to garnering support for the Inquisition's initiatives, the inquisitorial representative has 2 primary responsibilities. The first is to alert the Senatorum to threats significant enough to warrant their attention. The Inquisition often becomes aware of emerging dangers to the Imperium before anyone else, as demonstrated with the Necron awakening, the arrival of the Tyrannid Hive fleets, the advent of a Hrud migration, and many other critical events. Thus, the Inquisition acts as the eyes and ears of the High Lords across the galaxy, allowing them to bypass the slow and tedious processes of the Adeptus Terra when necessary. These warnings are not merely informational, but are accompanied by recommended courses of action. The High Lords will debate these recommendations, usually modifying them, and then set the immense machinery of the Imperium into motion to implement their plans. There have been periods in the Imperium's history when the representative has been absent for years, during which the Senatorum has been plagued by politics and infighting more than usual. The peak of this was when Lord Gog Vandir claimed the joint titles of Master of the Administratum and Ecclesiarch, leading to the Age of Apostasy, and the assassin wars of vindication that followed the Reign of Blood. During these times, the Inquisition was preoccupied with the increasing discovery of an ancient alien civilization seeded throughout the halo stars and dead worlds at the galaxy's edge, leaving them unaware of these internal issues. The Inquisition lacks a formal organization, and consequently there is no structured system of ranks or command, as seen in the Adeptus Terra or the military. Authority within the Inquisition hinges on 2 key factors: reputation and influence. While an Inquisitor may challenge the decisions of a peer, they are likely to defer when faced with the consensus of several others. Thus, an experienced Inquisitor with extensive contacts can wield considerable control over younger, less influential colleagues. Seniority alone does not confer true authority, but most Inquisitors tend to respect the wisdom of older and more experienced peers. Nonetheless, there exists a higher tier of Inquisitors who help maintain the integrity of the Inquisition and oversee the organization and allocation of resources. These individuals are known as Lord Inquisitors, Inquisitor Lords, or High Inquisitors. Promotion to the rank of Inquisitor Lord is by invitation only and is extended to those who have repeatedly demonstrated their courage, ability, integrity, and loyalty. To become an Inquisitor Lord, a candidate must be nominated by an existing Lord and have the nomination approved by 2 others. Often this process is a formality, as the word of an Inquisitor Lord carries significant weight, and it is rare for an Inquisitor to be personally known by more than one Lord. Occasionally, however, there may be contention, necessitating a conclave to discuss the nomination. Such meetings usually, but not always, include the nominee, who must answer questions regarding their activities and beliefs. Being recognized as an Inquisitor Lord is more about formalizing an already respected position rather than an actual promotion. Inquisitor Lords have no specific territorial dominion or responsibility for particular individuals. Instead, their status reinforces their authority within the organization. The primary benefits of being an Inquisitor Lord include the ability to approve the appointments of others to the rank of Inquisitor, convene high conclaves, and requisition greater resources from the Inquisition's forces and agents. Other inquisitorial ranks include Grand Master. This title is sometimes given to an Inquisitor Lord who oversees a standing sector or subsector conclave. For example, Lord Orsini is the Grand Master of the Ordos Helican of the Helican subsector. Master. In regions where an Ordo has a strong presence, the senior Inquisitor Lord of each Ordo in the sector or subsector conclave may be titled Master. In the Ordos Helican conclave of the Helican subsector, there are 3 Masters, one for each of the Ordos Majoris. These Masters oversee their respective Ordos, provide counsel to the Grand Master of the conclave, and are responsible for selecting a successor should the Grand Master die or retire. Like all imperial organizations, the Inquisition is vast, with countless agents spread across the galaxy. However, its structure is distinct from the sprawling bureaucracies of the Adeptus Terra. The Inquisition's mandate is clear and open-ended, to protect the Emperor and mankind from any threat using any means necessary. This mission demands ultimate flexibility, as the threats it faces range from individual mutants to system-spanning conspiracies and alien invasions. This section explores how Inquisitors fulfill their mandates and the resources they can access. The Inquisitor is the basic operational unit of the Inquisition. In an Imperium burdened by immense organizations and complex interstellar bureaucracy, the Inquisition operates freely, unfettered by such constraints. With a directive to combat threats to mankind, the Inquisition functions independently of other imperial organizations, holding absolute authority over them. In practice, the Inquisition must navigate the political landscape more than its mandate suggests. Although their power stems from the Emperor, and even the High Lords of Terra are subject to their scrutiny, the Inquisition still relies on other parts of the Imperium for resources. The Inquisition wields considerable power and has access to troops, weaponry, and archives beyond most imperial organizations, but it must still acquire these from the Adeptus Astartes, the Astra Militarum, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and others. Essentially, the Inquisition acts not as a standalone force, but as a guiding entity that enables the Imperium to protect itself. Much of its work involves observing threats to mankind and initiating appropriate responses. In addition to its many Inquisitors, the Inquisition employs millions, perhaps billions, of other agents and operatives across the Imperium and beyond, monitoring for signs of mutation, alien aggression, treachery, and incompetence. Each Inquisitor embodies the entire Inquisition and wields the organization's full power. Their word is absolute and beyond reproach, except by other Inquisitors. Therefore, while protecting the Imperium, the Inquisition also self-polices. The courage and diligence of Inquisitors have maintained the Inquisition's position for 10,000 standard years, despite wars, pogroms, internecine conflict, and internal heresy. Inquisitors are among the most rigorously tested, intensively trained, and highly motivated individuals within humanity, and they must be. An Inquisitor's strength lies not only in physical skills, but also in their mind and willpower. In a galaxy governed by religious dogma and orthodoxy, an Inquisitor must transcend superstition and faith, operating outside the established view of the galaxy. Being an Inquisitor requires a deep understanding of the forces opposing the Emperor and mankind, a knowledge surpassing even that of the Senatorum Imperialis members. They must challenge 10,000 Terran years of received wisdom and established orthodoxy, remaining effective by seeing the galaxy through a lens untainted by doctrine or assumption. To avoid the monolithic, slow processes that plague other imperial organizations, The Inquisition is organized at the most fundamental level, the individual inquisitor. From their inception, inquisitors can call upon whatever local resources are necessary to address threats without needing approval from the Adeptus Terra. This principle has remained true for 10,000 years, maintaining the Inquisition's position of absolute authority. To enable inquisitors to operate across the Imperium safely and without abusing their immense and open-ended authority, each appointed inquisitor is given an inquisitorial seal. This seal, often an inquisitorial rosette signet ring or similar adornment bearing the inquisitorial icon, grants the bearer extensive political powers. These include the authority to requisition Astra Militarum troops or Space Marines and call upon all three of the chambers militant of the Inquisition, usually claimed by the authority of the immortal Emperor of Mankind. The inquisitorial seal serves as a decoder for encrypted imperial documents up to the highest security clearance levels and may offer other privileges depending on the individual inquisitor's record. Forging an inquisitorial seal carries some of the harshest punishments the Inquisition can deliver, which is considerable. Occasionally, a matter arises that requires more extensive study and debate than a typical inquisitorial case. In such instances, inquisitors may conduct apotropaic studies, usually involving 2 or 3 inquisitors. Larger gatherings, known as apotropaic councils or conclaves, convene at least 11 inquisitors to discuss significant issues or ensure communication within a faction or philosophical group of the Inquisition. Rarely, an inquisitor lord may convene a high conclave or apotropaic congress, often involving dozens of inquisitors for weeks of debate on various related topics. Such conclaves are typically where new inquisitors are appointed and where the Inquisition polices its ranks, as no other organization in the Imperium has the authority to do so. Many threats can be handled by an inquisitor and their retinue without external help. Early-stage cults, renegade commanders, minor alien influences, and similar threats are quickly dealt with by eliminating the individual at the threat center or the core of the enemy group. When a threat is more extensive, an inquisitor may call upon local resources, such as the Adeptus Arbites and planetary warriors. They might require intra-system spacecraft or additional firepower against established sects or powerful individuals. In these cases, an inquisitor can either openly reveal their presence to local military commanders to obtain the necessary resources or remain covert, especially if local forces are suspected of widespread corruption. By discreetly passing on information, the inquisitor can assess the response of the imperial commander or other officials. Failure to act appropriately can lead to the Inquisition's wrath and a more extensive purge. The nature of the Inquisition's work often necessitates undercover operations, depending on the individual inquisitor. Particularly dangerous or sensitive missions may require the inquisitor and their acolytes to operate without the knowledge of local authorities. In some cases, they may fake their deaths to proceed with the mission undetected. During such times, inquisitors operate under a mandate known as special condition, which means the inquisitorial team, for all intents and purposes, no longer exists. The standard inquisitorial symbol of office is replaced with a modified symbol featuring a dagger-like point, distinct blue coloring, and a prominent winged skull near the top. This symbol is used only when recruiting members who can be trusted to maintain the mission's secrecy. Notable inquisitors like Gregor Eisenhorn and Gideon Ravenor have famously undertaken special condition missions. In some scenarios, local forces are not a viable option, either due to insufficient strength or potential links to the threat. In such cases, the inquisitor must draw on forces from further afield, which can be challenging given the Imperium's slow response times. A threat that could be contained within weeks might grow stronger before adequate force can be applied. The vastness of the galaxy and the delays in moving large troop bodies, even relatively short distances, present significant obstacles for an inquisitor dealing with a major threat to a world or star system. By the time the necessary forces arrive, the problem may have escalated beyond their control. Therefore, inquisitors often act as instigators, setting the military wheels of the Imperium in motion and overseeing their response. The admirals and colonels brought to the conflict zone may never know that the Inquisition initiated the events that summoned them. Navigating an inquisitor's relationship with the Space Marine chapters of the Adeptus Astartes is a delicate but essential task. Similar to the Inquisition, the Adeptus Astartes operate alongside the Imperium rather than within its strict hierarchy. While the Inquisition holds authority over the Space Marines, the chapters are fiercely independent and resistant to external scrutiny. An Inquisitor suspecting a chapter of deviance must proceed with caution. Historically, Space Marines have been granted more latitude than other Imperial forces regarding their organization and activities. However, the potential threat posed by a renegade chapter necessitates constant vigilance. The purity of their gene seed and the motives behind their actions are regularly scrutinized for any irregularities. Traditional, hardline Inquisitors often face significant challenges when dealing with the Adeptus Astartes, as Space Marines operate outside the Imperium's dogma and bureaucracy. Actions that may appear heretical and self-serving to some are often essential for the Space Marines' ability to respond swiftly and effectively to threats. Their autonomy enables them to fight necessary battles and protect mankind proactively. Unorthodoxy can be mistaken for disloyalty, and overzealous Inquisitors have occasionally created problems where none existed. Space Marines are rightfully proud of their loyalty to the Emperor and strive to remain apart from the politics and infighting that plague the Imperium. They answer only to their chapter masters and the Emperor, and questioning their loyalty is a grave insult. The involvement of Imperial forces against them is seen as a betrayal of the bonds between a chapter and the Imperium. A prudent Inquisitor will avoid hasty actions. When a chapter is genuinely a threat, it is often best to involve other Adeptus Astartes in dealing with it. A Space Marine chapter is a formidable force, and allowing them to confront each other is invaluable. Space Marines share a common bond, and a chapter master will respond to threats against the honor of the Adeptus Astartes as a whole. Confrontation by fellow Space Marines rather than an Imperial agent can sometimes lead a chapter to reconsider its path. If criticism comes from another source, it could provoke a harsh reaction and worsen the threat. In extreme cases, where a chapter poses a genuine menace, destruction might be the only solution, as seen with the Soul Drinkers chapter. This undertaking is significant and may involve multiple Space Marine chapters, either voluntarily or by request, as during the Fourth Quadrant Rebellion leading to the Badab War. Thus, it is preferable for the Inquisition to address threats using its own resources, avoiding the complexities of involving other agencies and military forces. This is why the Inquisition maintains its own fighting formations, such as the Deathwatch Space Marines and the Demon-Hunting Grey Knights Space Marines. Recruitment into the Inquisition is decentralized, and Inquisitors have the power to induct others into its ranks. Some Inquisitors do not recruit, dedicating their lives to their duties. Others see it as their responsibility to prepare the next generation of Inquisitors. The recruitment process is left to the Inquisitor's judgment, subject only to peer scrutiny. Some Inquisitors select candidates they encounter, while others actively seek suitable apprentices from other Imperial organizations. There are no consistent criteria for age or physical condition for investiture into the Inquisition. Intelligence and loyalty are key, often judged later in life. Extraordinary circumstances may lead an Inquisitor to recruit a young individual showing exceptional ability, but this is uncommon. Typically, Inquisitors look for free-thinking, determined and principled individuals. Those who prove their worth join the Inquisitor's retinue, starting in minor roles while being evaluated further. Over several years, the apprentice learns from the Inquisitor, eventually taking on significant duties. These semi-qualified individuals, known as interrogators, novitiates, neophytes or approbators, may undertake missions independently but remain subordinate until fully invested. Normally, 3 Inquisitors or an Inquisitor Lord must consent to grant full powers and an inquisitorial seal, though urgent circumstances may accelerate this process. Interrogators may move between Inquisitors as needed. During this period, they learn the ideals and philosophies of their mentor, propagating the factions and institutions of the Inquisition across generations. Along with philosophy, the apprentice gains knowledge of the Inquisition's internal workings, as deemed appropriate by the mentor. Earning knowledge and respect is a critical tradition among Inquisitors, emphasizing that knowledge is power, guard it well. The Inquisition's remit places it above all institutions in the Imperium, except for the Senatorum Imperialis, the High Lords of Terror. In theory, a single inquisitor has the authority to denounce entire planetary governments, requisition entire armies of the Astra Militarum, and determine the fate of entire populations. In practice, however, the reality is much more complex. The methods of the Inquisition vary greatly depending on the judgment and character of its agents. Some inquisitors are bold and outspoken, others operate in a dark and threatening manner. Some announce their presence to instill fear in the Emperor's enemies, while others move stealthily, observing from the shadows before making their move. An inquisitor would be reckless to arrive at a world suspected of secession and attempt to arrest the imperial commander outright, as this could incite the entire population to revolt. Therefore, an inquisitor in such a situation must ensure they have sufficient resources to counter an uprising, which requires gaining the support of other entities. In reality, inquisitors function as peers of the Imperium. While many consider themselves answerable only to the High Lords of Terror and the Emperor, they are part of a class of high-echelon imperial servants who wield comparable political influence. This group includes imperial governors, Astra Militarum generals, Space Marine chapter masters, rogue traders, Imperial Navy Lord Admirals, Adeptus Arbites judges, and sector-level representatives of the Administratum. Relations between these groups are often rife with rivalry and bitterness, and even within a single group, deadly conflicts can arise over influence and leverage. Imperial commanders, for instance, frequently engage in territorial disputes, and the Inquisition is not immune to internal political strife. In this context of political maneuvering, no single institution holds absolute power over another, regardless of ancient charters. The powers of an inquisitor are not strictly defined by the remit of the holy orders of the Emperor's Inquisition. Instead, they fluctuate based on their position within the dark and feudal power structures of the Imperium and are influenced by many external factors. An inquisitor who takes action against a powerful heretic, only to later discover that the individual was sponsored by a rival, may become the target of retribution. One who declares a world purgatus without peer approval may find themselves ostracized and unable to call upon their colleagues for help when needed. These and countless other factors limit the practical powers inquisitors can wield in the field. Perhaps the most prevalent shared traditions within the Inquisition are those rich in symbolism. Humanity at its core often responds strongly to specific images, a fact that the Inquisition leverages to its advantage. Fire is a symbol closely associated with the Inquisition and its operations. The image of purifying flames is powerful, and acolytes are encouraged to use it to instill fear. Whether through the white-hot excruciator, a witch pyre, or a promethium-drenched flamer, the presence of fire signals the presence of the Inquisition. Beyond its literal use as a weapon, fire holds deeper symbolic meaning. Many inquisitors view themselves as the cleansing flame, purging corruption. Some also see themselves as keepers of the Emperor's light, the sacred flame of faith. Those who serve on the black ships speak of fueling the mystical beacon of the Astronomicon, casting willing souls into the furnace of the Emperor's will. Another symbol tied to the Inquisition is the hammer. Many inquisitors carry ornate war hammers to strike down their enemies. Like the ecclesiarchy, many within the Inquisition regard the hammer as a symbol of piety, the force that crushes heresy and corruption. Warhammers are often awarded to acolytes who excel in eliminating cultists and heretics. Alongside the flame and the hammer, perhaps the most significant symbol of the Inquisition is the seal. Every inquisitor bears an inquisitorial seal. This small amulet or icon, shaped like a stylized column, derives from the ancient sigil of Malcador, who established the Inquisition on the Emperor's orders during the Horus Heresy. Believed to represent a pillar of strength or a rod of control, the seal is the Inquisitor's badge of office. Revealing it demands that their authority be respected. When an Inquisitor presents their seal to a planetary governor, for example, they expect the planet's resources to be at their disposal immediately. The inquisitorial seal is arguably an Inquisitor's most crucial piece of equipment, never willingly relinquished. Some seals include circuits and sonic probes for hacking cogitators and opening electronic locks, or even serve as simple weapons, ensuring the Inquisitor is never unarmed. An Inquisitor and their cadre might also display the inquisitorial rosette. a symbol incorporating the design of the Inquisition's seal, worn on clothing or war gear. The rosette worn by those in the Inquisitor's employ can also be displayed on vehicles or by armed forces under the Inquisitor's command. The rosette signifies that an individual is working for the Inquisition, ensuring the fearful cooperation of most adepts and citizens familiar with the Inquisition's purpose. However, the rosette is used sparingly, as most Inquisitors prefer to keep themselves and their acolytes discreet. It is most commonly displayed in the company of fellow Inquisition members or when an Inquisitor aims to instill fear and awe in the common populace. He who is not a Puritan in his youth has no heart. He who is still a Puritan in his maturity has no brain. Anonymous Inquisitor. Many Inquisitors carve out their own path through the galaxy, relying on personal judgment and knowledge to succeed. However, it is human nature to seek consensus and shared direction, and Inquisitors are no different. At any given time, the Inquisition is home to numerous philosophies, each seen by its followers as the ultimate truth and key to salvation. These are not rigid doctrines, but ideas, rigorously tested with every tool available to an Inquisitor. When an Inquisitor fully commits to one philosophy, it is because they believe it is the truth necessary to save humanity, not because it fulfills a religious need. As the size and influence of an Ordo fluctuate, so too does the popularity of each philosophy, with some gaining brief popularity while others endure for millennia. Although these philosophies are often pursued with a fervour akin to religious zeal, they are grounded in reason and tested scientifically. Inquisitors are practical individuals who do not waste time on ideas proven to be fanciful. These philosophies are often so encompassing that they transcend inquisitorial divisions, uniting like-minded Inquisitors across various Ordos. These groupings are sometimes called factions, though this term is misleading, suggesting a structure that does not exist. All Inquisitors are equals in the pursuit of a philosophy, even if they use different methods to achieve their goals. For example, a Thorian, who believes the Emperor's soul can be reborn into a new flesh and blood body, could come from any number of Ordos. An Ordo Xenos Inquisitor might seek alien gene tech to create a new body. An Ordo Malleus member might study the warp to understand how the Emperor's spirit could be guided into the physical world, while an Ordo Hereticus Inquisitor might research ecclesiarchy legends of saints resurrected from the dead. Yet, for every Inquisitor dedicated to a philosophy, there is always at least one who opposes it as radical folly and seeks to eradicate all traces of it. Central to the Inquisition's purpose is the credo, "Trust no one," and this applies as much to fellow Inquisitors as to any other living being. Inquisitors generally adhere to two broad schools of thought about their ultimate purpose and the methods to achieve it: the radical and the Puritan. Radicals believe that the ends justify the means, using any method, including exterminatus, demon hosts, or alien weaponry. Puritans, on the other hand, strictly follow official imperial political and religious doctrine and often persecute their more unorthodox colleagues. They are most concerned with maintaining the Imperium's status quo, even if this means perpetuating the long period of technological and cultural stagnation that has plagued humanity since the end of the Horus heresy over 10 millennia ago. The main tenets of the Inquisition's competing philosophical sects on how best to defend the Imperium beyond the basic radical Puritan divide can be defined below. Puritans largely accept the imperial creed as it is taught to the Imperium's citizens. Believing the Emperor is a god, the dark forces of the warp are unutterably evil, and mutants, heretics, and witches must not be tolerated. They tend to support the status quo of the Imperium, seeing it as the instrument of the Emperor's will, despite its flaws. Puritans are often young and full of zeal, eager to prove themselves to their peers and the Emperor by hunting down humanity's traditional foes and preserving the Imperium's stability. Many acolytes share this fervour, particularly as they are often on the front lines against cultists, mutants, and other threats. Even if an Inquisitor does not entirely agree with this view of the Imperium, they might encourage Puritan ideals within their servants, knowing it will help them root out corruption with enthusiasm. Thorianism. Emerging from the tumultuous age of apostasy in the 36th millennium, the Thorian Inquisitors are a Puritan faction who believe that the emperor's will can manifest in the hearts of pure individuals. In times of great need, they believe his avatar will appear to vanquish the enemies of humanity. Named after the great prophet and reformer Ecclesiarch Sebastian Thor, who led the movement against corruption within the imperial cult and restored the Imperium, Thorianism is the most radical of the Puritan ideologies. Should they succeed in summoning the emperor into a new physical form, the resultant galactic upheaval could lead believers and unbelievers to turn against each other. Monodominance. Among the most powerful and oldest of the inquisitorial factions, the monodominants trace their origins to the 33rd millennium. This hardline Puritan faction believes in the complete destruction of all non-humans, including mutants and psychers, and anyone unwilling to swear eternal allegiance to the Emperor. Although they despise mutants and psychers, they acknowledge that the Imperium must utilize these individuals for survival. Monodominants are known for their excessive use of force when purging corrupted worlds, often resorting to exterminators to ensure no trace of heresy remains. Amalathianism. Representing the conservative core of the Puritan faction, Amalathians advocate for unity between imperial organizations in pursuit of the Emperor's will and oppose tumultuous social and political changes. They believe in maintaining the imperial status quo. Amalathian inquisitors oppose the division of the Inquisition into political and philosophical factions. Ironically, their ideals have marked them as their own faction. This philosophy began on the world of Gthalamor at Mount Amalath, inspiring Lord Solar Macarius to his grand conquest of nearly 1,000 new worlds during the Macarian Crusade. Anomolian beholders. Unlike other incarnationist inquisitors like the Thorians, the Anomolian beholders believe it is hubris and heresy to actively bring about the Emperor incarnate. Instead, they are the most conservative of the incarnationist factions, believing their duty is to observe humanity and await the Emperor's arrival, preparing for this event and standing ready to assist. They focus on locating potential divine avatars who can serve as vessels for the Emperor reborn, destroying only those they believe are tainted. Anomolian beholders are pragmatic and optimistic, continually seeking wisdom and enlightenment despite numerous setbacks. They are known for being level-headed and reliable, traits that often make other inquisitors overlook their eccentricities. Ardentism. Though not strictly aligned with resurrectionism or incarnationism, the Ardentites are discussed alongside such factions like the Thorians. Their quirky belief, persisting for millennia, is rooted in the principles of the Emperor incarnate, but diverges significantly. Ardentites believe the Emperor's power is likely to manifest through a group of people, or even the entirety of mankind, rather than a single divine avatar. Observing humanity's evolution toward being a psychic species, they believe the Emperor's ultimate plan is to disseminate his power throughout humanity. Ardentites seek evidence of the Emperor's presence in any person showing exceptional talent or psychic ability. Known derogatorily as miracle chasers, their reputation stems from the erratic behavior of Inquisitor Varajan Thex, who spent 2 centuries in the 39th millennium proving the Ardentite theorems without success. Despite the censure for his baseless beliefs, many Ardentites continue with a rebellious streak, delving deeply into their investigations and seeking inner meanings and hidden motives in their discoveries. Radicals have diverged from the tenets of the Imperial Creed. Their beliefs vary widely, from using the forces of the warp against its inhabitants to seeking to dismantle the very Imperium they serve. Radicals often claim that all Inquisitors begin as Puritans, but exposure to the realities of the Imperium and the wider galaxy leads them to become more flexible in their ideas, ultimately turning radical. Puritans, however, see the more extreme radicals as corrupted by the power they wield and the dreadful knowledge they are exposed to. Most radicals try to hide their divergent beliefs when among other inquisitors, preferring to pursue their agendas away from the scrutiny of more puritanical colleagues. Some, however, are outspoken and make many enemies in their attempts to convert Puritans to their cause. Inquisitors are generally cautious of such beliefs within their acolytes until they have proven themselves through many successful investigations. Xanthism, the most powerful and openly radical grouping within the Inquisition, Xanthites advocate the use of warp-based weaponry, such as demon-possessed swords, demon hosts, and other tactics that turn Chaos's power against itself. Named after Inquisitor Master Zaranchek Xanthus, who was executed as a heretic in the 32nd millennium for his dangerous knowledge of the warp, Xanthism is one of the oldest inquisitorial philosophies. Unlike other inquisitors, openly Xanthite inquisitors are often denied the use of the Grey Knights, as they are considered too impure to command these elite space marines, who may be led into a trap in service to the warp. Horusians, a subsect of the Xanthites, Horusians seek to create a new leader for humanity, much like the Thorians. They believe that the power of Horus, if harnessed and bound into a great leader, could unite humanity and crush all opposition. Even open-minded radicals view the Horusians as extremely dangerous, likely to become traitorous pawns of the ruinous powers. Recongregationism. Recongregators believe that the Imperium has become decadent and corrupt after millennia of stagnation. To prosper, they argue, the Imperium must change. Working behind the scenes, recongregators influence or engineer events to bring about progress. They are among the least visible factions, operating in the shadows while others charge into the fray. The Puritan Amalathians deeply oppose them. Istvanism, more extreme than recongregators, Istvanians believe the Imperium requires constant strife to survive. They take their name from the infamous Istvan III massacre, where Horus virus-bombed loyalist space marines. Istvanians seek to foment conflict and crisis, believing that peace would lead to the Imperium's collapse. They instigate discord within and without the Imperium, starting wars and stirring rebellion. Antiquoti, this radical faction, originating from a split with the Ocularians led by Inquisitor Thaddeus Hack, focuses on discovering patterns in the past to predict future events. Cassophilians, a radical sub-faction of the Thorians, Cassophilians study the transition of the human soul from real space to the warp. They hope to find a way to bring souls back to the mortal world, a step toward bringing the Emperor's soul into a suitable mortal form. They work closely with other factions, particularly the Puritan Anomolian Beholders, to gain insights into their studies. Revivificators. Descended partly from the Thorians, revivificators studied the transition of the human soul at death, seeking to slow or halt death and ultimately resurrect individuals. They are often found in plague areas or battlefields conducting investigations on the dying. They are known for their interest in Eldari necromantic practices, attempting to replicate their soul-capturing technology. They aim to study the Golden Throne and alter its functions to restore the Emperor's body. Plutonians, a radical sect of the Ordo Malleus, Plutonians believe demonic possession can create elite demon hunters. They allied with the Exorcists, chapter of Space Marines, using possession to strengthen initiates resistance to chaos. Their practices are kept secret due to their heretical nature. Unnamed ultra-radicals. This extreme radical sub-faction of resurrectionists believes that the Emperor's final ascension into the Immaterium and his ability to destroy chaos requires his death in real space. The Adeptus Custodes ruthlessly hunt down members of this faction whenever they are identified. You do not need to look to the stars to find the greatest obstacle this conclave faces, my brothers. Simply gaze around this room and you will find such a sea of discord as to make our foes cackle with glee. Inquisitor Aistus Graccha in address to the Calixian conclave. In addition to the factions described above, numerous other splinter groups are whispered to exist throughout the Imperium. These are rumored to be offshoots of larger factions, fragmented by extreme views or differing beliefs, such as the Puranthius or Antus Psychea, who target specific foes or practices to cleanse the Imperium. Local phenomena can also give rise to such factions like the Clavianus of the Eastern Fringe, who focus on understanding the unique philosophies of the Tao. In the Calixis sector, several of these splinter factions exist. Some are mere shadows of larger schools of thought, while others are legitimate organizations with significant power and influence within the sector. These factions include Libricarianism, a relatively new radical faction in the Calixis sector. Librica followers are fanatical counter-reformers often outcast within the Holy Ordos. Originating as an extremist offshoot of the Puritan Amalathians, Libricar inquisitors believe it is necessary not only to preserve the institutions of the Imperium, but also to ceaselessly watch, judge, and purify those who rule and maintain them. They despise proponents of change and those who betray their emperor-given power and privilege for personal gain. Libricar inquisitors aim to restore true order and venerate imperial tradition, taking it upon themselves to become judge, jury, and executioner. Oblationism, born from the War of Brass in the late 40th millennium, the Oblationist faction consists of bitter fanatics who wield warp-forged weapons, bind demons, and command sorcerers' power with a self-hating fury. They view all in the Inquisition but their own creed as utterly impure and deserving of destruction. Oblationists sacrifice themselves for the Imperium's protection, gathering profane artifacts and forbidden knowledge, while tolerating no others to use such methods. They believe that only other oblationists may wield the weapons and knowledge of the enemy, and remain true to the God Emperor. Ocularians, one of the strangest factions in the Calixis sector, the Ocularians are united by their obsession with knowledge of the future, predictions, omens, and divination. Their detractors accuse them of wasting their attention on futile attempts to predict future threats while ignoring present dangers. The Ocularians are a paranoid faction of diviners and scholars whose obsession with prophecy skirts outright heresy. Despite their eccentricities and internal secrecy, their abilities and skills make them a valuable if erratic resource. However, many Puritans within the conclave Calixis view them with suspicion and have instigated internecine strife against them on numerous occasions. Phenonites, a malevolent Xanthite splinter faction, the Phenonites have long been declared excommunicate traitoris by the Ordo Malleus. Dedicated to overthrowing both the God Emperor and the ruinous powers, they seek to fuse flesh, machine, and the warp's powers into a new mode of existence for mankind. Thought to have been utterly destroyed, the Phenonites have recently re-emerged in the Calixis sector. Polysicana, this radical faction within the Calixian conclave, believes in humanity's ascension into a purely psychic species and sees themselves as guardians and guides for this transformation. They protect psychers from Puritan firebrands intent on their destruction, particularly in the Calixis sector, where the influence of the tyrant star results in a higher number of humans born with psychic talents. Polypsychona inquisitors are vigilant in seeking out nascent psychers and spend considerable resources protecting them. Seculus attendus. This minor radical faction believes that the ecclesiarchy's religious dogma hampers humanity's progress. They seek to reduce the ecclesiarchy's power and influence while maintaining the populace's faith in the God Emperor. They work to weaken the state church from within and manage its contact with new worlds and remote frontiers to promote freer worship of the Emperor. The faction remains quiet about its intentions to avoid censure and excommunication. The Tenebrae Collegium, a secret heart within the Tyrantine Cabal, the Tenebrae Collegium focuses on investigating the tyrant star and countering its influence in the Calixis sector. Created by Inquisitor Casilda Cognos, the Collegium consists of inquisitors and acolytes who prioritize the Tyrantine Cabal's interests. They maintain secret agents among the acolytes of inquisitors throughout the Calixian conclave. Xenos Hybris, a long-standing radical faction in the Calixis sector, Xenos Hybris originated from a gathering of radical Ordo Xenos Inquisitors. They believe in learning from aliens to defeat chaos, often bringing them into conflict with monodominance. They focus on understanding and emulating alien civilizations, recovering Xenos technology, and maintaining ties with benign alien species. This contact is often performed under the cover of rogue trader activity. The ultimate fate of a radical inquisitor is often grim, whether it be corruption and damnation from the dark forces they engage with, or excommunication and execution by the very Inquisition they serve. The Inquisition lacks a strict hierarchy or formal organization, functioning instead as a council of peers. There is no internal affairs division for reporting wayward or heretical inquisitors, nor a department for processing such cases. Instead, a loose process exists for dealing with suspected heretics, traitors, and radicals within the Inquisition, handled by a conclave. This process begins with denunciation, followed by a trial by peers, and culminates in either acquittal, execution, or excommunication. The downfall of an inquisitor starts with their denunciation. Many inquisitors push the boundaries of acceptable behavior, but few are formally called to account due to their near equal power and authority. Whispers and rumors may circulate among acolytes and inquisitors about an inquisitor's dubious actions, but nothing formal happens until someone steps forward to make a denouncement. Denouncing an inquisitor is a bold and perilous move. It is to publicly accuse them of treason, heresy, or worse. Such an action is not taken lightly, as it can backfire, leading to strained relations within the conclave, or even the excommunication or execution of the accuser, if their claims are unfounded. The accuser must be confident in their suspicions and able to convince a jury of peers of their correctness. Once an accusation is made, the accused is summoned for judgment, and a jury of inquisitors assembles. The accuser presents their evidence, and the accused defends themselves, although often with little time to prepare. The jury then deliberates and declares the accused innocent or guilty. A guilty verdict typically leads to the inquisitor being declared excommunicate traitoris and executed for heresy. However, many accused inquisitors choose to evade capture, believing themselves above the law and having done no wrong. If an inquisitor is judged guilty in absentia, they are declared excommunicate traitoris, and a warrant is issued for their arrest and execution across the sector or beyond. This means losing their inquisitorial powers, being branded a heretic and a traitor, and being cast from the Emperor's light. The process is not straightforward. The galaxy is vast, and the Inquisition is spread thin. Communicating the excommunication status across all inquisitorial holdings in a sector can take years, and informing every agent can take even longer. It is not unheard of for an inquisitor to be hunted down and executed years after their excommunication, even if they had successfully appealed their innocence in the meantime. An inquisitor's authority relies heavily on fear and respect. Their rosette commands great respect as a symbol of higher authority. Even after excommunication, an inquisitor can still command fear and respect, especially on worlds far from the central authority of the Imperium. While legally a criminal and a traitor, in many parts of the Imperium, without a strong inquisitorial presence, they remain an inquisitor in practice. The acolytes of an excommunicated inquisitor are similarly excommunicated and often lack the power to protect themselves. The Inquisition swiftly moves to seize holdings, finances, and contacts, potentially curtailing the activities of the excommunicated inquisitor and their servants. However, any seasoned radical inquisitor will have contingency plans, hidden assets, and shadowy accounts prepared for such an eventuality. Some even have operations designed to activate upon their excommunication or execution, ensuring their plans continue or their enemies suffer. The excommunication of a powerful or influential inquisitor can cause significant dissent within a conclave. Allies within the Inquisition may stand by the excommunicated inquisitor, and their shadow assets may wreak havoc against their enemies. This factional infighting can escalate and have devastating consequences for the Inquisition. The most catastrophic outcome of factionalism within a sector is a full-blown Inquisition war. This war breaks out when opposing factions within a sector conclave declare each other excommunicators or refuse to acknowledge the authority of their peers. Typically, such conflicts are diffused through careful diplomacy, discreet assassinations, or swift executions. However, on rare occasions, if the conclave fails to act quickly enough, or the disagreement hits a significant fault line within the Inquisition, it can rapidly escalate. When this happens, inquisitors from the entire conclave are drawn into the conflict, forced to take sides. Even in the best of times, an inquisitorial conclave rarely speaks with one voice, and such disputes can fracture an already fragile consensus along factional lines, splintering the Inquisition in the sector into numerous smaller groups, each pursuing its own agenda. Most such fractures result in prolonged diplomatic squabbles between multiple small factions, lasting an indeterminate amount of time. During this period, the sector often drifts closer to the brink of chaos, as the Inquisitors, preoccupied with their internal conflicts, neglect their duty to combat the enemies of the Imperium. These civil wars can persist for solar decades, but rarely escalate beyond minor infighting or skirmishes on peripheral worlds. Occasionally, though, a conflict can escalate further, particularly when factions are divided by deep ideological differences or when powerful factions have much to lose by backing down. Such an escalation inevitably leads to a full-blown Inquisition war. Fortunately, Inquisition wars are extremely rare, with only a handful occurring in the past 10,000 standard years. They are terrifying events, far more devastating than any alien invasion or heretical uprising, as Inquisitors turn on each other, wielding their full might and authority. Shadow missions eliminate planetary governors. Entire regiments of the Astra Militarum are commandeered and turned against one another, and whole star systems are subjected to exterminatus as Inquisitors unleash doomsday weapons against their rivals' strongholds. An Inquisition war rarely lasts longer than a solar decade, and at most a Terran century due to their devastating nature. The wider Imperium is compelled to act swiftly, deploying entire chapters of Space Marines to the sector, with orders to terminate any and all Inquisitors with extreme prejudice. If no faction gains the upper hand when the fighting ends, the Imperium is willing to wipe the slate clean through a bloody purge and establish a new inquisitorial conclave with Inquisitors from other parts of the galaxy. However, the end of an Inquisition war does not mark the end of turmoil in the sector. The devastation and dissent caused by the conflict can have long-lasting repercussions, with consequences reverberating for millennia.